Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with Executive Director Stephanie Matthews of the Columbus, Ohio organization Tribe for Jazz. She talked about the cornerstone of the organization and her history in promoting jazz. A Tribe for Jazz is a platform for inspiration, positivity, elevated thinking, and education. Their overall vision is to advance the future of jazz for generations by producing content, events, and activities that transform, educate, and lead to purposeful actions and impactful conversations surrounding the preservation of the genre of jazz. They are doing that now for the great jazz saxophonist and composer Jon Irabagon. She talks about this and so much more. Enjoy the conversation.
Hey, thanks for taking a minute out for Neon Jazz. I appreciate it.
Oh, no, it's my absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So let's go ahead and start off here and give me kind of an idea, what does Tribe for Jazz do? What is it that is kind of the overarching goal of your organization?
So a Tribe for Jazz, our mission is to preserve the legacy and advance the future of jazz through visual storytelling, live and virtual performances, education, and community engagement. For the visual storytelling piece, that is something that we offer our artists that we work with. That along with helping them promote them in the market, elevating them in the marketplace. So we can provide to them things like documentary films, short films, cinematic short films. And like in the case of Jon Irabagon and our new film Legacy, that's exactly what we did. We did a complete rebranding for him. It included new photographs, new logo, website revamping, the cinematic short film, as well as a feature-length performance film. And so in Jon's case, here he was committed to the music, a true master of the art form. But these other pieces of his branding had kind of fallen, by the wayside. And so we came in and we wanted to work with him to elevate those pieces to further push him into the marketplace. That's the visual storytelling side of what we do. But then there's also the live and virtual performances, which, we produce those as well with various artists, and we record them cinematically so that we have those assets. And the education piece and the community engagement, which is really fascinating. I'll tie it back to Jon's film Legacy, which I know we'll talk about more later, but we're able to take these assets that we've created and use them for educational purposes. So for Legacy, we created a program around social emotional learning, SEL, and we expanded it. So now it's social, emotional, artistic learning, because that's also a curriculum in certain schools. So the film, it's a three-layer program. It's the showing of the film, followed by a curated program, an artistic program for the kids to be able to work on, start communication and dialogue, foster, emotional health, and just have that platform for them to be able to speak out about, the things that they're feeling based on the music. And then, an artist engagement where like Jon would appear via Zoom in some of these classrooms to further talk with the young people about jazz, about, the emotions it inspires, about their feelings. And so it's one whole big program. And so as we're building all of these things out. And so that's what's really exciting about a Tribe for Jazz, because we're looking at the marketplace, what's needed, where the gaps are, and where we can step in. And it's been really exciting.
The interesting thing about jazz, and I think it's different from a lot of other art forms, is that you always hear about preservation and passing the torch along. I don't know that happens as much in others. I think it's kind of implicit. So did the beginnings of this organization start as making sure that where you're at in Columbus and beyond, that the whole story of jazz, whether it's been local folklore or more than that, is preserved and passed on to the next generations?
Oh, my goodness, absolutely, yes. Yes, but the question is, how do you do that? For us, it's the preservation, but it's also the advancement of it, okay? Because to preserve, like, what's there, archivally and all of that, there are organizations that, really, that's their focus. But ours is the preservation of it, okay, but the advancement of it. How do you get it out to the next generation? How do you get them involved? How do you get them listening? Because, jazz, as you know, the demographics, skews older. But how do you get these younger folks to listen and to tune in? How do you get more Americans to listen and tune in? Jazz is really big still overseas, but how do you get that further emergence here in the U.S.?
Well, and I guess with a young cat like Jon that's doing some cutting-edge things and his story, that would probably have to be some kind of a bridge to the youth and getting people in.
Absolutely, absolutely. But I think you also have to look at, like, so you got these young guys, right? Men and women. Socially, these artists have to think about, like, what their platform is saying. Because a lot of young people, and I'm thinking about social media, a lot of these younger generations are looking to identify with an artist who might have a specific platform. In addition to the music, they're drawn to the music, but what is that artist saying about current, political, and they don't have to be political, but, I guess that's where I'm thinking. So my thought is, how do we tie this? We're tying this to the preservation, but it's also about the advancement.
Let's get into you and how you started this journey into jazz. How did all this begin for you?
So this journey into jazz for me, I think has been a long time coming. By trade, I am a photographer and a creative director, and I had the really good fortune of partnering with, I guess, my collaborator, Bruce Halliburton. Bruce has an enormous jazz collection, is a huge fan and supporter of the arts and jazz. And, he and I sat down and started talking one day about the industry and the marketplace and, was there something that we could do, with these artists? And his thought was, these artists they're acclaimed, they're award-winning, they're driven and focused on their work and the creation of this beautiful music, but the digital assets, the photographs aren't what they aren't supposed to be, and what they need to be rather, and the messaging, the websites are older, and this and that, and so as the conversation started going, this idea behind a tribe for jazz started to come out, and we fleshed out the mission together. Me coming from the visual side, the creative side, the visual storytelling piece, that was, a no-brainer because we just wanted to be able to develop them in all ways, across the board. So digital assets and in the media. So like what we do is we wrap like, PR and marketing around all the different projects that we do. We're there to help, educate them as we elevate their assets in the marketplace. And like for Jon, for instance, he's just been, a gem to work with in that sense because he's completely open to everything that we brought to the table. And this was a conversation. This was definitely a back and forth and a growing process for all of us. And it was just really eye-opening in terms of the different needs that they didn't realize they do need that we were able to provide.
The one thing, too, I was thinking about is the area that you're in Columbus. When you think about jazz centers and things that are going on around the country, what's the jazz scene like there? What's kind of an inspiration locally that keeps things thriving for you?
Dick's Den has been a great location, Dick's Den, and then I think we have a Blue Note Cafe over on the east side of town. And I just follow some, just kind of keep an eye on some of the local talent here and what's going on. There's a saxophonist by the name of Eddie Baird who's doing fantastic work. He's branched out all over the country, but I think he's back here in Columbus, and Michael Thomas and, some other names. And, there's a lot here in Columbus, Ohio. We're very fortunate that way. And that this market, can nurture these artists.
So what about you as far as jazz? What was your first jazz show? Who were some artists that really fueled your love for the craft?
I remember when I first picked up the trumpet, my grandmother had a love for jazz, and I remember listening to her albums, and I fell in love with Louis Armstrong, and that was the reason I started playing the trumpet back in 6th grade. And while I didn't stay with it, that music stayed with me, and so I think Louis, I love Oscar Peterson, the album that him and Louis did together. I think You Go to My Head is one of the greatest songs ever written. I love Bill Evans. I think Peace Peace is a magnificent composition. Who else? I love jazz singers, think about Dinah Washington and Sarah Vaughan. The older greats. And of course, Miles Davis, John Coltrane, Lush Life. Yeah, I'm more drawn to that era. They're there.
Talk to me a little bit about how you got Jon on board and what the ultimate goal is, not only for you, but for him in these pursuits to kind of enhance his image and brand.
So how do we get Jon on board? That's a good story. So Bruce knows Ralph Alessi, and Ralph, through Andy Milne, the connection was made to Jon. So Jon had been on our radar for a while. So then the call was made, and it was over a series of emails that we finally got a phone call. And, of course, being in COVID, everybody was locked down. I think Jon was out there, out west doing the Birds and Stream, that he's been working on, his latest release. we were doing Zoom calls and emails and just a lot of back and forth, talking about ideas, and it just kind of grew from there. We developed a friendship virtually, and it wasn't until he came to Columbus in late May when we filmed the production that we actually got to meet him for the first time. And I tell you, when we did meet him, it was like family. We felt, all of us, the entire team was, assembled, and we just fell right in. There was laughter, and, John is a huge Cubs fan, of course, He had this wish to go to the Cincinnati Reds Stadium. It was one of the stadiums on his bucket list, because he's trying to go to every stadium in the country. And so we arranged for him to go to the Reds game with our audio engineer, and those guys hit it off, and, between dinner and filming and all of the work that went in, it was just the forging of a really beautiful relationship.
Was ultimately, what is John and what are you looking to get out of this union?
First and foremost, this is about the artists. Okay, this is about their passion to create drives us. And so we want to support them in their endeavors however we possibly can. Here's the thing, between the visual storytelling, between the educational pieces, furthering them into the marketplace, we're just advancing the future of jazz, through them, through their music, pushing their voices out there further. And listen, John is acclaimed, and he's well respected, but like I said, how do you get the younger generations to know who these amazing artists are? This is one of the ways that this is possible, through that storytelling piece. And these musicians have amazing backstories, and we want to investigate that, and we want to explore that. Listen, whatever we can do to help further and elevate someone's career, there's that piece. But then exposing the market, younger people, maybe even older people who haven't heard of these artists, there's that too. So it's a win-win for everyone, because we're moving in our passion, and that is to be of service.
Beautiful. The real drive behind an organization are the people that are involved with it. So my question to you is, why do you love jazz?
It's an amazing art form. It's fresh. It's new every time. The improvisation, it's collaborative. It's cooperative. It sparks creativity. It's alive. Jazz moves. This is nothing more exciting than that. It's unexpected. Those things that I just mentioned are actually some of the most, exciting parts of life. It's not the plan. It's not it's not the rote monotony of it. It's that unexpected. It's that burst, that energy. And that's what jazz is for me. As an organization, we believe in that, and, we're just excited to be out there and to be able to communicate and have, just be a part of the journey of these artists in any small degree.
Excellent. Stephanie, thank you for opening up about the organization. Good luck with everything as we kind of move forward and things start opening up a little bit more. I appreciate your time.
Joe, I thank you very much and appreciate Neon Jazz. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest minds and players and promoters in Columbus, Ohio, and Kansas City, Missouri, along with spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Stephanie for her time, music, and story. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino in the iTunes Store. Visit Neon Jazz at youtube.com, and for everything Neon Jazz all the time, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.